Podcasting from the Sound of Freedom Studios, this is Local Politics. This is the 2023 Judson ISD Candidate Forum. Should we call this meeting to order?
Cue your gavel.
Yeah, still waiting on a gavel. This question and answer session is sponsored by the Texas Tri-County Chamber of Commerce. The TriCo vision is to build opportunities with a strong foundation and foster economic prosperity for Texas Tri-County communities. Anyway, welcome to the Sound of Freedom Studios in Selma, Texas. This is a 23 Judson ISD Candidate Forum sponsored by the Texas Tri-County Chamber of Commerce. Before we get started, we have some housekeeping to take care of. Jason.
Yes.
Are you registered to vote?
In all 6 counties.
If you're sitting at home and you're not registered to vote, shame on you. The last day to register to vote is Thursday, April 6th. Early voting starts April 24th. Early voting ends May 2nd. Election day, or the day to storm the Judson PAC, is May 6th, 2023. That's a joke. We're not storming any Judson buildings. I assure you this election will not be rigged. All right, number 2, agenda item number 2. I know we don't have a quorum, but we act like we do here, right? So, all right. All right, so here we are. I'm happy to report that we have questions from a couple of trustees and members of the community. I put on some of the Facebook pages, I put out some feelers. I called trustee Jose Macias. He was our first guest ever on the podcast. He was happy to give me a question. Trustee Suzanne Canoyer is very passionate about Judson ISD, and if I called Jose and didn't call Suzanne, I think I would be in trouble. So we got questions from both of them, which is nice. This is a candidate forum, and how do you know that?
Because we have the clock.
The freedom clock. All right. So we're going to ask all these questions. So far, we have 3 candidates that have agreed to come in: Monica Ryan, Rene Paschall, and Laura Stanford. We have not heard from Mr. Diaz as of today, but I will reach out to him using other means and give him a fair opportunity to come in here. So each candidate is given 4 minutes to answer the question, so let's get started. First question, what is your name, and can you tell us about yourself?
My name is Rene Paschall, and before I tell you about myself, I would like to say that I don't consider any election that I'm running in to be running against anyone. I run for. I run for issues. I run for people, but I don't run against. I've always said that in every election. I am a product of Judson ISD. I graduated from Judson High School in 1972. So do the math. I've been around a long time. I taught in Judson ISD for 36 years, so I'm now a retired teacher. I spent, before I became a trustee on Judson's board, I was the first African-American female councilwoman in the city of Converse. 6.5 years I spent on the council in Converse. So I learned a lot about the municipalities. And while I was teaching, I was a city councilwoman. So I was able to impart a lot of local governance with the students that I taught as a history teacher. That was a great thing for me. And it was for them too. Then the opportunity came open for me to run in 2009. 2009 for Judson School Board. At that time, I took the at-large position, place 6, which was also the place that Mrs. Adair held. I ran for Judson ISD at that time in 2009, won that election. And so from, I beg your pardon, that was 2015. That was not 2009. In 2009, I was still at the city of Converse. I was at Converse from 2009 to 15. So in 2015 was when I ran for school board. And I successfully won that election. Also, I have what my family calls legacy in this district because my dad also taught at Judson High School. And in the 70s, the 80s, when he taught at Judson, he was quite popular. At the football games, he was known as the Hey Hey Man. And so on all my literature, I make sure I put Hey Hey. And because of his greatness, I like to say, in our district, there was a time, I believe it was 2002, that a petition had gone around the district for the next elementary school that was being built at that time to be named after my dad, and it is. So there is an elementary school in the district named William Pashall Elementary. My family is extremely proud to have that legacy in our family. So I like to think that I wear that Pashall name very proudly in this district. I hope that I've not let any of the voting community down, but I've not heard any complaints. So hopefully I still have that support from the community. Enough about me.
I'm Laura Stanford, and I'm running for the board. I was born in Texas, but raised in upstate New York, and then came back to Texas to go to college. And I got a teacher's degree, and I taught in SAISD for a few years, and then eventually ended up in business. So for the last 30 years, I've been a mortgage loan officer in this area, helping people get into homes, and I love that. And I'm a problem solver. So I found out that when people have come to me with a desire to buy a home, they don't come to me with a real clean picture. They come with problems. And I got real good at solving those problems, such that people that couldn't get approved somewhere else would come to me and get approved, because I took the extra time to delve into the issues and to look for solutions. So I see myself as a problem solver. And I would bring that to the picture. And I am from a large family. I'm the oldest of 9 kids and very close to my family. They're all here in Texas now, for the most part. One is out in Europe, but we've remained very close.
Of course. Thanks, first of all, for you guys for having this and putting this on for everybody. Thanks to the Tri-County for supporting this. You know, people are really interested in the Judson ISD elections right now. So great to be able to have a place to let people know about us. My name is Monica Ryan. I am running for Judson ISD School Board District 7 member at large position. A little bit about me. I'm an Army veteran. I served 24 years in the United States Army. I was an intelligence officer, retired as a lieutenant colonel, Bronze Star, deployments, including Afghanistan. Great opportunity, you know, to see the world and serve my country. Enjoyed my time, but at some point that was time for that to come to an end after 24 years. While I was in the Army, I got a chance to be a professor and a curriculum developer at the Command and General Staff College, which really piqued my interest in education and being able to put together curriculums and teach students. I continued that through my retirement. I was able to go get my teaching certificate here in Texas and got certified in 5 areas, got to go student teach in middle school, of all things I thought I would hate. I ended up loving 6th graders, got to teach English and math as part of my student teaching. Spent a little bit of time as a teacher within Judson teaching special education. But then I put that on pause for a little while to go back to my PhD program. I have a bachelor's in English, originally got a master's in business while I was in the Army, and then started my PhD program, but then that kind of got put on hold because of a couple of deployments called Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan. But I really wanted to kind of restart that. So I took a break from teaching and was working on that full time, about to finish up my dissertation and finish up my real field research, and then COVID hit right in the middle of my field research. So we were supposed to have spring 2020 data, and there was no spring 2020 data. So looking forward to all the data, coming back out here in spring of 2023 and having all the students, back to on their learning paths and being able to kind of finish that PhD up in education, curriculum instruction. My focus is on dual language education and how we can help students learn in two languages and how that can have better outcomes. Then probably my most important job is I'm a mom, best duty title I can ever have anywhere. I have 5 daughters. One of them graduated from Judson ISD during COVID, headed off to UTSA in the middle of a semester because there really wasn't much of a senior year during COVID. And she is studying history, thinking about getting a master's in library science maybe and coming back and being in our schools as a librarian. I've got a senior who's about to graduate, class of 2023. It'll be my first one who gets a real graduation and a real senior year. She's heading off to Texas State next year to be in their education program and is going to become an elementary school teacher. And then I have 3 more daughters. One of them's a junior, one of them is a freshman, and then I have a 4th grader. And they all attend Judson ISD schools, and I'll have 5 daughters that all graduate from Judson ISD. And then in all of my free time, amongst all of that stuff, I work in real estate, helping military families who are coming to the area come find houses. I coach youth soccer and lots of other volunteer opportunities.
All right. Question number 2. Why are you running for Judson ISD Place 6?
I don't see any reason why not to. I'd like to think that along with the other trustees that I've worked with, that we've been successful. I'm very, I think my platform is simple. We just successfully passed a safety and security bond. And I feel right now that the major priority is overseeing what that bond is going to bring, to oversee the improvements that need to be made at the different facilities in the way of safety and security. So that would be my main concern. Also, I feel like our board is disjointed. We're not the team of 8 that we used to be. It concerns me. It concerns me that we're not. I'd like to bring that unity back to the board, if possible. I'm going to do everything I can to try to do that. That's my main reasons for wanting to run.
I am running because my nephew started attending Judson High School just this year. And about a little over a year ago, I started going to school board meetings because I decided I need to get more involved, and it seemed like a good time to do it. And in the process of going to school board meetings, I discovered there were things we could do to be better. And the more I listened, the more I thought, wow, we have some room for improvement here. And I realized along the course of those visits that, yeah, I care about it because my nephew's there, but I care about it anyway. Even if he wasn't going, I care that it's better because the quality of the education affects the students that then go into our community, affects the quality of our community. So that matters. It should matter to everyone. So I just began to feel maybe I could help make it better. And I took a while coming to that decision. It wasn't something I just out of the box went, yeah, I'm going to run. It was something that came to me over a period of time. And I decided, yeah, I can do this.
Question number 2. Why are you running for Judson ISD Place 7?
Oh, I think I've told my story because I have an interesting, Judson story. I was looking for a new place to live 5 years ago, wanted to get a little bit more land, get some animals, and something popped up on my phone, a new house that came back on the market. I called my realtor and I'm like, I got to see this house right now. And she goes, oh, that's in Judson ISD. I'm not showing you that house. And I'm like, you're fired. Hired a new realtor the same day, saw the house, made an offer on the house. Because, I believe you can be in a not great district and have an amazing teacher. You can be in the best district and not have an amazing teacher. And I'm not going to let some school district reputation, determine where I'm going to live and, spend the rest of my life. So now I'm in my forever house and it's in Judson ISD. So as soon as I got here, I was retiring, so now I had a lot of time on my hands. So I was able to volunteer in the schools in a way that I hadn't been able to when I was on active duty. So joined the PTO at my daughter's elementary school, helped the PTSO at the middle school, became involved in the booster club at the high school. And then it was about the same time Dr. Ball came in, and all of a sudden all these committees started at the district level, and they're looking for parents to come in. And there weren't a lot of volunteers at the time. And I'm like, cool, I don't have anything else going on right now. I'm retired. And so I started going, and I was one of the original parent representatives on the strategic planning committee, which was writing the 5-year plan for Judson, all pre-COVID, and pretty much started to find out about all these other things. Coffees with the superintendent, district site-based, and started to go to pretty much every meeting I could get to. And got really involved and loved what Judson was doing, and liked having a voice as a parent and being able to participate kind of in that process. And then Bond 2022 came around last September. Mr. Macias, one of the board members, and Bear Goolsby, one of the other parents, and you, Kevin, too, were like, hey, we need some help. We failed on the bond in 2021. If we don't get these schools built, if we don't get school security, if we don't get air conditioning in our gyms, like, we're going to have problems here in Judson. We got to get this passed. And I'm like, I'm all in, because I read through the stuff, looked at the data. I'm like, this has to pass. So I went out there and block walked and organized volunteers and thousands of social media posts and met 1 million parents along the way and community members through that process. And some of the stuff they brought up was, why aren't all of our board members out here helping us? Why isn't everybody on social media? Who are our board members? Because people honestly just didn't pay attention to what was kind of going on. And a number of the parents were like, hey, do you know we don't have a single Judson parent on our board? None. We have some parents of school-age kids, but they don't send their kids to Judson. Who's representing us as parents on our board? Who's making sure they hear our viewpoint? And everybody's like, you should run for school board. You should run for school board. I'm like, oh no, I am not a politician. That's not, I'm perfectly happy and retired. But enough people, we found out enough information, and the community talked enough, and it was time for someone to step up. And my kids are pretty good on their own. They got a car to go back and forth to high school. I've got a great village of people who helps take care of my 4th grader. My family lives here, and I kind of ran out of excuses about why it couldn't be me. And having an education, a business background, a military background, understanding our military families in Judson and everything else, I'm like, I think I can do this. You know what? There's something telling me that it's my turn. And so I'm like, yeah, let's go all in. And my whole crew of parents and community members I had met all along the way are like, we got your back. Let's go do this together. And so I decided to run.
Question 3. What makes Judson a great district?
This may not be the answer that many would like to hear, but I have to start with our academics and athletics. I've got to start there. I believe that is what brings transfer folks from wherever they come. They know about this district and the history of this district and the traditions that this district has had, the pride that this district has historically had. That's what makes this district great. We've always had the reputation of being a great district because of athletics. But recently, that's not all. That's not all. It is not just the athletics. It is the achievements that have been made academically. And recently, those academic achievements have been brought by all of the various programs that our kids can get themselves involved in. I think that's the greatness of this district.
Wow, we've got so much that makes it a great district. We have a wonderful athletics department, of course, and we have such a diversity of citizens, from all across the spectrum, which I love. I love that about our district. I love our teachers. I have gone to the curriculum committee for several of their meetings over the past year, and I hope I can still go to that if I'm lucky enough to get on the board, but I love the quality of the teachers and their passion and how much they want to solve problems. And just sitting in that room with them is so inspiring to me, and watching them go back and forth and share their experiences with the success in the classroom that they may have had is inspiring to me. I love their energy, and I just love being around them. So we have wonderful, wonderful teachers in the district. And I love this whole area. Great businesses. I love the people, great people. So it's just a really good community in general.
Oh gosh, I could go on this question forever, because there are a lot of great things, that are going on, from the people to the things we're doing and everything else. One of the recent things we're doing is our innovation campuses. This is a big topic with me with charter schools and other things. And the way Texas does it is there's all sorts of grants you can get to start up specialty schools. So STEAM academies, leadership academies, dual language academies. And so Judson has gotten grant writers on staff and started to apply for the grants. And we're winning. We're winning all of these grants. So we already have, again, a fine arts academy, a STEAM academy. We just won 4 more grants to have college-based elementary, a college-based middle school, a STEM elementary, a STEM middle school that are going to feed into our high school programs that we already have, an early college high school, and we already have a high school STEM program, T-STEM, down at Wagner. And we didn't need to sell our schools off to do that. There's some districts who don't have that capability. So they pretty much sell their school off to a charter school on an 1882 agreement. But we said, well, why are we going to pay more money to have somebody else run our schools and not protect our teachers with our contracts and everything else that comes with charters? Let's do it ourselves. So we went out and hired a bunch of smart people, got grant writers, and we're doing this all in-house. And it's giving our parents options, so that if you want, your kid is so into fine arts and we have school of choice, then you can go up to Olympia Fine Arts Academy and your child can go to school there. If your child wants to pursue engineering, then go to one of our STEM programs and they can start to learn extra STEM things and decide if that is what they want to go do post-high school. And so to home grow that and give options to our families is something I think we need to continue. Make sure which ones of those programs are working well and we're getting good educational outcomes out of them, but continue the ones that are working. I think our ratings, what we've done in the last 3 years with COVID has been amazing. We've got, I think, 20 elementary schools, and more than half of them raised an entire rating in the 3 years during COVID. And so to make those leaps and bounds during a time where it was hard to get kids into the school, hard to teach them, hard to Zoom, hard to do all of that. 3 of our 5 middle schools upped an entire letter rating, and our newest high school up to a letter grade. So it feels like we're on glide path. It feels like everybody's making progress. So let's keep that going. Figure out what we did right to get to that point and then really continue that. The other thing from the community is it has to do with the history of Judson. People who have lived here forever, which there are a lot, they love to stop and tell me the history of Judson, which I know now, but they will still continue to stop and tell me that because their grandkids went to school. They went to school here. Their kids went to school here. Their great grandkids are going to school here. And there's a sense of family in our community that people don't want to lose. As we become more urbanized, we don't want to lose out on those local schools being something for our sense of community and people feel they can still gather around to. They can still come on out to the Halloween thing at your local elementary school, even if you don't have kids there, and come feel like you're part of the community. So I think we are keeping that history alive, and people want to stay Judson, and we want to stay Judson.
Question 4. What are the most important challenges facing Judson today?
The first one, I think, would be retaining teachers and teacher recruitment. I know that we share the same challenges that most school districts do. But keeping teachers in the district, and every teacher is a good teacher. Every teacher is significant in the lives of students. And with all of the things that teachers have to go through, that would be the biggest challenge right now, post-COVID, keeping teachers. Class sizes is another challenge. Having so many different reasons to get out of the profession makes class sizes difficult. And not only that, there are so many other distractions now other than just teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic that it's difficult. It really is difficult to keep the class sizes down and to keep the teachers there. And not just teachers. When you look at every department, it's difficult to keep employees. It's difficult to keep our bus drivers. It's difficult to keep the maintenance and operation employees. It's difficult to keep folks now post-COVID. That's a challenge, and it's a challenge we all face. Challenges. Give me a second. The state TEA, that's a huge and their requirements. That's a huge challenge. I believe that our teachers are doing an excellent job of teaching on a daily basis what they're required to teach. And then here comes the state always moving the bar. And we get to a certain place where we've done what you've asked us to do. We've run all the marathons. We have been assessed, and now you're moving the bar again. So it's difficult for teachers to be able to keep up. And not only are teachers able to keep up, it's like the domino effect. It trickles down to the students, to the families. It trickles down. All of the distractions and the requirements that are made on the system of education, the profession itself. That's another challenge. What do we do about it? We got to stick together. We got to let our parents know that it's not your local school district that's responsible for many of the things that are happening. They need to speak to their legislators. Specifically, write letters to their governor, send emails. Those are the ones that are making all of the changes.
Well, the number one challenge to me is student performance, and that's what stood out to me when I was going to the meetings that I attended, is that our students, we're not reaching a high level of performance. And I looked before COVID too, by the way, and we weren't really all that good before COVID. We still have kids that are not at grade level, and that's the main reason we exist as a district. Our schools are there to first serve the student, and I feel we're just missing something there. And so I feel that needs to be addressed. I also know from talking to a lot of teachers, a lot of parents, that there's a discipline issue. I can't ignore that because I hear it again and again and again. Now, how to solve that would be wonderful because I'm sure it's multifaceted, but we can't ignore it. We need to bring something more to the picture because that affects the classroom environment and it affects how the teachers are able to teach. It affects the attention span of the other kids. It's just an all-round issue. So I see that as a definite challenge that we need to address, not just grade level performance, but the classroom environment. And I also feel teachers are not getting the supplies and the resources that they need. I hear that they feel not listened to. They don't feel that they're getting what they need to serve. So we come in with a higher goal and they go, great, now you want more from me, but what kind of help am I going to get for that? So what I'm hearing is that we need to lower the classroom ratio, which I know we're working on right now, and that sounded really like it's going in the right direction, and more tutors and aides and resources for the teachers is what I see is lacking, and they feel that. They feel that. So those are some of the classroom environment is a big challenge in my mind. And not just my mind. From what I hear from a lot of people that I talk to, both parents and teachers.
Overcrowding. And that leads to everything else. So right now, we have too many children in our classroom. We have teachers with 24, 26, 28. There's one in one of my child's classes, 36 kids in a classroom. That is not helping us. You can't be the best teacher you can be if you have too many children in your classroom. You can't give them the attention that they need. And so you're not going to get the outcomes you want. You're not going to be able to teach to the level that we need to be teaching kids right now, that individual attention to get them all back from COVID and back from all that learning loss. So we have to get enough teachers in the classrooms. And that's a nationwide teacher shortage. But we have to go recruit and get our teachers and fill up those classrooms so we can get that overcrowding reduced. We have overcrowding because of out of district. I know my opponent campaigned on this back in 2021. He wanted to make us a destination district. And he specifically talked about wanting people from SAISD and Schertz-Cibolo and all these other districts to come into Judson, into our schools. Sounds great on paper, but now we don't have enough room in our schools. We're hauling portables into campuses. The newest campus in Judson, where the Mokes, has portables in it only after 4 years. And we have so many out-of-district kids who are coming in here now that our own children are not getting a seat in a classroom. They're having to go drive over to another campus because we've allowed too many out-of-district in here. So we can't be a destination district right now. We need to take care of our own. And we need to make sure our kids are in our local community schools and that they are not overcrowded. I mean, you look at Kitty Hawk, we're at 150% strength. It's very hard to control student behavior when you just have that many children in a facility that was not designed for that many children. It's hard to control a classroom if you have 28 or 30 students in there. So student behavior will start to get back under control if we can get that overcrowding eliminated. And everything starts there. It's very hard to do a lot of the other things until we have less kids in a classroom, less kids on a campus. And teachers are allowed to go in and do teaching the way they want to do teaching. And there aren't twice as many kids in a cafeteria trying to eat lunch with half as many teachers now monitoring them. So I think once we fix that first challenge, then we'll be able to tackle some of the other smaller pinpoint challenges.
Question 5. Have you or do you serve on any committees with Judson?
Our committees have changed quite a bit, and I've served on several. Recently, I served on the Growth and Planning Committee, but that's changed now. We have 4 different committees, and I'm probably not going to remember all of them. There was a bond committee. There is an innovation committee. I serve on the legislative committee, and I serve on that committee alone at this point. I've called meetings, but I've not had those trustees that volunteered to serve with me. They didn't attend. So right now there haven't been any meetings. But I was interested in serving on that one because of all the requirements that TEA has put on the profession and on teachers. And I wanted to be able to have input. But Kevin, you're putting me at a at a loss right now. I can't remember all the committees but yes, I have.
I do not serve on any committees. Just attending the curriculum committee. I don't know if they consider you serving on it. I would love to be a part of it. I'd love to even be a part of curriculum writing. That's one reason I started attending, was that maybe I could get more actively involved in it. But right now, it just, anyone can come, and I've been coming.
Yes. If I find out about it, I'm usually there. So, again, I talked about it a little bit in the introduction. It started out very local, with my kids. I had, kids in elementary, kids in middle school, and kids in high school when I first moved here. I had 5 of them. I was tearing all over Judson, back and forth to games and all those types of things. So I started with just PTOs in my local school, volunteering in the library, helping with the book fair, helping with the bike rodeo. Up at the high school, one of my daughters was in JROTC, so I was helping with their their JROTC booster club, and raising money for them to go to their drill competitions and have a military ball, which was very, important, having been former military. But then as soon as that strategic planning phase came out for Judson, there were actually 3 different committees parents could be on, and somehow I ended up on all 3 because we didn't have a lot of parent volunteers, and I had time. So I got to see the entire strategic planning process through all 3 of those committees, and then we came up with this great plan. You go back and watch the video from the strategic planning. I was like the parent that was, in the video for a second. And I've been to shack councils. I've attended the district-based, site-based committees. Anytime I can find more information about what's going on, because I was that parent who couldn't be there because I was deployed. I was working. And other parents in those districts I lived in stepped up when I couldn't be there. So I need to be there for those other.
Question 6. What are the top 2 pressing issues immediately facing Judson ISD?
Yeah, I'm gonna say that the safety and security is probably just as pressing today as it was in August. Perfect. Keeping our teachers. That's the second most pressing. I don't know if that's in the right order, but I would say those are probably the 2 most contentious things that are foremost in my mind.
Student performance. I just have to keep coming back to that. That's why we exist, and the student performance is just below par. When I looked up the most recent TAPR, Texas Academic Performance Report, from 2022, we were at 62%, not at grade, across the board, just overall general, not at grade level. That's a huge challenge. And I know it's a multifaceted problem, but we really need to come at it, I feel, very aggressively, because that's why we exist. And then 2 would be, I think, the classroom environment. I think teachers feel that they are fighting an uphill battle inside that classroom. They're faced with many challenges, and I think they need more support. And I'm hearing they just don't feel fully supported there. They feel a little bit like a lone warrior on a battlefield. So they do a good job. I want to see them get more support. I'd say that's the top 2 in my mind.
Yeah, I'm going to break your rules and pick 3. Okay, so first of all, new superintendent. We are in this holding pattern currently where we have an interim superintendent, but we're getting ready to start a new school year, and we're going to have a new school board and a new superintendent. And we can't screw this up. We can't, because we've made so much progress, and that has to keep going. So we have to get the right person into that job, and then that's going to be decided by the current board. They're rushing to get it done before the elections. So I won't have any say in who that person is. And the new board, won't, but the new board's the one who is going to have to create that relationship and set those expectations for the new superintendent. And that has to be something that's going to keep us on this path of increasing our ratings and increasing our student performance and getting our facilities built. They got to have the same priorities that we have been fighting so hard for and be willing to join our team and continue to move that ball forward. Like I talked about with overcrowding, recruiting and retaining our teachers. I know we hear that all the time, but we are in a teacher shortage, and everybody is. But that's fine. That means it's combat, because our Judson kids need teachers, and whatever we have to do to get not just our fair share, maybe a little more than our fair share of that teacher pool. We need to become a destination district for teachers so that we can get everybody over here. And obviously, pay always has something to do about that. You know, we've done pretty good trying to keep us in line with the other school districts in terms of our pay, but some of that, a lot of it's the culture. Our teachers need to be in schools where they want to work. They need to feel like the parents value them, the kids value them, their principals and district staff understand what they are doing and how hard their job is, and cheerlead for them every single day of what they are doing in those classrooms. And sometimes a cultural change and feeling valued will make people stay more than anything else. We don't want people to leave because they don't feel valued in Judson. So, and we have to fill those classrooms. We don't have enough subs. We can't have floating subs teaching classes on a full-time basis because we can't get enough teachers. So this summer, it's going to be rough, but we're going to have to go out and find as many teachers as we can. And probably, this is one I get from the community a lot when I'm out block walking and everything else, is rebuilding that trust between our community and Judson. You know, just go out and Google Judson ISD School Board. You won't find a whole lot of articles, and a lot of them are not super complimentary. And we haven't always, Judson has sometimes broken that trust. It's broken its promises in the past. And the community needs to trust us again. The board, the district, everyone needs to act ethically. We need to be transparent in what we are doing. And we need our community to trust us that we are doing everything we can to help educate their kids, to raise our ratings, because it affects the economic development in these cities. It affects, I want to buy a house in a good school district. And so people, whether you have kids in school or not, you want to live in a great school district, because then when you go to sell your house, you're going to make more money on your house because you're in a great school district with a great neighborhood school. So we owe that back to them to really rebuild that trust.
Question 7. Have you started campaigning? If so, what have you learned?
I have started campaigning. I've learned that I have to speak on items that I never had to speak on before. As a school board trustee, I feel that I have always been able to be nonpartisan, and I have always felt that that's the way it should be. But there are more issues, cultural issues, that are facing our society today. And people are interested in those cultural issues. Wars is what I guess you could call them. And so the community is interested more so in, what is that teacher going to be teaching my child? Other than, how are you going to help them successfully achieve this grade level? What can I do to help my child academically? I think that those other things like sex education and CRT, and race relations, those are things that I never had to consider thinking about before, but those are distractions that have been brought to the forefront by what's going on, currently in our world today. And that's one of the things that I think that COVID brought. And so now school board trustees have to also address those things. I've had to start thinking about that, and so that's what comes forward now. Not so much, what are you guys going to be doing to help my kid pass, but are you going to be having pornographic books on your shelves? And when are you going to take them off? Those kinds of things that we've never had to face before. Those are the challenges that people come to me with. May I add something? I wrote a note. There's distrust of trustees in schools. It's stronger than it usually has been. And among some, this has led trustees to turn their attention to controversial cultural issues. Education should not be a partisan issue. I wanted to make sure I said that.
Yes, I have started campaigning, and I've learned a lot. I'm not a politician, so I'm new at this whole thing, and it's been a very interesting experience. I made a decision up front, though, because of who I am and what I believe in, that I was going to run a campaign of high integrity and honesty. People hate negative politics, and so many good people do not run because of negative politics. And I was warned by a lot of people, you're going to have negative stuff thrown at you. I thought, well, I'll just deal with it when it happens. And I would say, if anyone hears something negative about me, please call me and ask me to give you my input on that. And I will tell you the truth of it, because that's going to happen. I was warned it would happen. That's the climate that we're in, kind of the gotcha politics. And I thought, well, I'm just going to run a campaign that's honest and that's focused on the issues, period. And that's what I've been doing. Can I add something to that answer?
You can try. Give it your best.
Something else I've seen on the campaign trail is the reactions from the citizens, from the parents and the teachers, because I've talked to many of them. And I love the feedback I'm getting, but what I continue to hear is we definitely have problems and we need change. And I find that I'm a very good listener, and people respond to that. They appreciate that. They want to be heard. That is a huge message that keeps coming back to me. Listen to us. And I had one lady that after I listened to her problem and said, I'm not sure what I can do, but I'll see if I can get some resources to help you. She said, that's all she wanted, was to be heard. And she said, now what can I do for you? I said, well, I have a sign you could put in your yard. And she was happy to do that. So the people out there, that's the most passionate thing I feel about this campaign, is the people that I'm meeting, coming in touch with, how they listen and how they want to be heard. And they're sharing their problems, and I'm happy to hear them. I plan to keep up that same energy. Even if I get on the board, then I want to hear from people.
This has been going on for a while. This started way back in January. I've been going fast and furious because this is an at-large position. This is 26 some miles from the top to the bottom of this district. This is over 90,000 registered voters. This is over 26,000 students and their families and all the community members in between. To cover that many people, I had to start early. So back in January, I started going. And it's really been about just getting back out there in our community. I've already been out there, but I needed to get out there more. There were still people I have not had time to engage with. So I spend pretty much all day, every day, talking and meeting with people. That includes our elected government officials. Again, 7 municipalities. That's a lot of mayors and a lot of council people who are talking to their constituents. They know what's important in their communities. And those partnerships between Judson and and all of our cities, that's invaluable, because we affect them and they affect us. And so I want to start those relationships now so those can continue in the future. So meeting with all of them to hear what's going on in their cities and what's important to them. I'm on social media a lot. It's not my favorite thing, but that's where people are and that's where people read things. So I do post a lot to social media about me. because I want people to know who I am. I'm very transparent. Like, I don't have anything to hide. I am who I am in my life, and I believe what I believe. So just come read about me. And if you love me, love me. If you don't like me, it's okay too. So I try and post a lot so that people understand just who I am and get to know me. And that's resulted in tons of people reaching out to me. My cell phone number is out there on the internet. You can find it. Very easy to call and text me. So people are calling and texting, whether they're community members, teachers, and parents. And we've been having coffee. I call it the great food finds of Judson ISD, because all of a sudden I'm meeting at bakeries and boba places, and I'm eating macaroons all over, because I'm just meeting people to just have a conversation. Or, people who are busy, or teachers who can't necessarily meet up because they're, at school on nights and weekends, and just talking to them. And I'm just there to listen. I want to hear what's important to them. I've started block walking now. I love walking. I really do. It hurts my knees, but I love it. And Wednesday when I was out, the one lady kind of looked at me really kind of cross-eyed, like I was crazy. She's like, "You're actually the one running, and you're out walking this entire neighborhood yourself?" And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." She's like, "Don't most people pay people to go do this?" I said, "There are some people who do." My opponent did last time, but that I need to be out there. Like, this is where you are. I need to come talk to you while you're watering your flowers, and I need to know what's important to you. So I love the act of being in my communities, and seeing the schools and seeing the houses and seeing the people. Same sidewalks that people walk every day. This is where our families are, all 26 miles from top to bottom of it. I love that. And really just continuing to attend as many meetings, just meeting as many people as I can, and just opening those lines of communication and just being accessible to everybody. And I love the input, and I like that people are getting excited about the election.
Question 8 from Judson District 1 trustee Suzanne Knoyer. As a school board member, how would you respond to the efforts of special interest groups who advocate the censoring of existing curriculum that is perceived by them to be in conflict with their personal beliefs?
It demoralizes teachers. It's demoralizing to teachers to have to not be able to teach history. And I am going to be specific and think that that question was geared toward race relations and teaching CRT. There are some that give the teaching of history the title of CRT. On a personal level, as an African American female, I do not believe that should even have that title. I believe that you just call it truth in history. It doesn't need to be called critical race. It needs to be called truth in history. And let me just say that school board members should be tasked with overseeing the governance of the school district. That is what we feel that we are doing when we run for these positions, and focus on setting policies and goals that lead to better student outcomes. However, unfortunately, some people are seeking to inject the politics into what was traditionally a nonpartisan position, creating the distractions that I mentioned before on school board trustees, and demoralizing teachers for teaching realistic history, true history. And they call these distractors CRT. Again, education is not a partisan issue. I do not agree with all of those distractions. And I am very thankful that right now it is not part of the radar of this school board. I'm very thankful for that. However, We've got to be aware, because if it hasn't come yet, it's coming, and we need to be prepared for it.
Censoring is not something I'm generally for in general. I mean, that's a negative thing to me, because I'm for free speech. I'm for open communication, open information, transparency. I will say that I want to see us focus on the students' performance. So if there's extracurricular activity that's superfluous to that and isn't helping with that, then you need to take a look at that. So I'm going to look at anything that is supporting student performance. To me, everything's got to tie into that. That's why we're there. That's the only reason we're there, number one. So if there's something that we're spending money on or time on that's not supporting that goal, then we need to look at it. But not just because I don't believe in it myself. It has nothing to do with my personal beliefs. It has to do with, are we serving the student? Number one.
Thank you, Ms. Knoyer, for that question. This is probably the number one question I've gotten asked while out block walking and on Messenger, because it is all over, the news, and it is definitely a very hot button topic. And as I've talked to with a lot of educators and administrators and our community members, political and social agendas are for adults. They're not for our kids, and they're not for our schools. People have beliefs, and that's great. And there are lawmakers and there's laws, and go walk in Austin, and people should advocate for whatever it is they believe in their adult lives. But in schools, we need to get back to basics. We need to teach math and multiplication tables. We need to teach English language arts and reading, and kids need to know what an adverb is. So we need to focus on teaching basic things, and then things parents want to teach outside of school, they're welcome to teach whatever they want in their home, and advocate for whichever way they want to advocate. But let's keep our kids out of it, because we just need them to have a safe space where they can just go learn basic things.
Question number 9 from our very first guest on Local Politics. District 4 Trustee Jose Macias. There's been a lot of discussion on helping more students reach grade level. How would you ensure we are creating aggressive goals to improve student performance?
I believe our goals are aggressive. I think that there may be some out there that are not remembering where we started. 3 years ago, it's been 3 years now, I think, since COVID. Excuse me. The goals that we set 3 years ago were reasonable at that time and where we were. Of course, we always want to set those goals to be higher. But at this particular time, and just recently, we were given the results from Texas Assessment TEA report, the TAPER report, our accountability ratings. And our district is doing well as far as our accountability goes in the state. And we are above the state average. Our district is. Where the goals are, and I think what people are not remembering, is that we had 2.5 years where students were doing hybrid learning. It started out that after spring break, they weren't going to go to school. And every month they were wondering, is this going to be the month we're going back to school? Are we going back to school this week? Are we going back to school this week? Well, you're not going back to school for the rest of the year. Okay, what are we going to do next year? Oh, we're not starting off the year in school? What are we going to do? Well, some of you will do this thing called virtual learning. There are some students who must have physically their body in a classroom setting. I would have to attest to being one of those. I do better when I'm standing or sitting in front of my teacher and I'm able to take notes and ask questions and interrupt when I need to. I would venture to say there are a lot of students that achieve better that way. So we have to consider all of that time that was lost in that time period. And the results that we've gotten from the state since post-COVID now, our district is back to where we were before then. We did not lose ground. We gained by being able to get back to where we stood. So, as far as I'm concerned, our goals and our standards are not too low. They are where we were before this pandemic began. We are not lower than we were. We are back to where we were. And so now we can make those standards, we can meet those standards where we are, and in the next 5 years, increase. But we are not at an unreasonable place. We are at an attainable place. And you know, Kevin, we don't want teachers. We want to keep teachers. We don't want them to leave. And so in being ridiculously making those levels too high to attain, we're telling our teachers they didn't do enough. And I'm not willing to say that.
That's an interesting question because I'm finding that people have a funny reaction to the idea of upping the goal. I have run into, when I was listening to people in the information flow back and forth when I was attending school board meetings last year, I was shocked, frankly, at the goal of 45% to grade level in 5 years. I even made a note on my pad. What? That seemed really low to me, and it seems low to people that hear it when I just share it with them. But I just lost my place. If you could. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So can I just pick up? That seemed like a very low goal to me. But now I'm hearing that if you want to make that more aggressive, people get scared or concerned. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Don't make it harder for us. And I'm hearing that teachers are hearing from that. If you raise the goal, more is going to be expected of us with no more resources to help us get there. And I went, oh my God, that broke my heart because that's not the message. In business, when you create a higher goal, then you get the resources released to get there. So you set the goal and then you work toward that goal. So to me, the goal is the beginning place, but I'm hearing the reverse from people that are hearing that out there, and they think, oh, no, that you're going to make it harder on us and we won't have anything more to work with than we have. So that's the reverse of my understanding of goal setting. So to me, you set a higher goal, and we have to work with each other on how to do that, but I think we can do a lot better than that much over 5 years. And then you have to bring the resources to bear. That's the key. You can't just throw out a number and say, okay, guys, go for it, go get it. No, and that's what I think people have heard, and that's really sad. But it takes a high goal to reach a high goal.
Ah, yes, Mr. Macias, thank you for that question. Him and I worked together on the bond, and we have had some great educational discussions about our district. And this has been one of those hot button topics on Facebook for the last couple weeks about goals. And I think there's a misunderstanding of where kind of goals come from and how you set goals. And goals have to be related to resources. When you set a goal at something, you have to be able to provide those resources to meet that goal. So you can say, I want 100% of kids to be able to know all their multiplication tables. But if you don't put enough time in the school day, enough teachers, enough resources and materials at it, then that's not a realistic goal. And you have to set realistic goals for people. I think of the example with my girls in cross country. I had a cross country coach come in. Everybody needs to run an 8-minute mile. Okay. Well, I had 3 girls in cross country. One of them run faster than an 8-minute mile already. And 2 of them run quite a bit slower than that, but that's okay because we go out there and we try. And what I saw the first couple meets with that goal being too high for 2 of them and too low for 1 is their run times were actually getting worse. And at that week, I stopped my girls. I'm like, stop. Let's look at what can we do to train in the next 2 weeks before our next track or cross country meet. And let's look at your times. And what I did was I set training goals for them throughout those 2 weeks. I want you to do these things, and these are the times I want you to get. And then the next course is going to be a hilly one, so I expect you to be a little bit slower, but still improve your time. And I set them a realistic goal for their next meet. I'm like, just ignore coach. Probably not the right thing to do, but whatever. I got to mom what I have to. And what I found when I did that for 3 meets is all 3 of my daughter's run times improved. Because what I did was I looked at the resources, number of training days available between meets, and I looked at what their performance was. I looked at the environment of what the course was going to be like, because I know all the courses, been to so many cross-country meets. And by setting realistic goals for them, they then achieved them, and then I moved the goals forward. And they were so proud of themselves after each of those meets because I had given them something they could do. And most of the time, they actually beat the goal by quite a bit because in their brain, they knew they could do it. And that's what we have to do in schools too. If you set a goal at, if you're currently at 50% of kids could do something and you want 70% of kids to do something, then our teachers and our staff need to come back and say, well, to do that, I'm going to need X. Well, then it's up to the board. Can I pay for X? How am I going to pay for X? Can I get them X? Well, if I can't get them X, then it's not a good goal. Don't set people up for failure. Those teachers celebrate every question a kid gets right on a test. One question makes a difference to that teacher and to that kid. And to set arbitrary goals of averages that's not helping push the ball forward. That's not helping our teachers, feel motivated to feel like every single little thing they're doing in the classroom. So really, we need to integrate that goal setting into our budgeting process. Those things should be set at the same time. When we're looking at, we should have our goals on one side, the resources we're going to put against it, and all of a sudden when we're at a $50 million deficit, then all of a sudden something has to change. We have to reallocate things. We may have to lower certain goals because I don't have enough money to put against it for this year. And so by integrating those together and setting some truly attainable goals that we have given resources for, then I think we're going to start seeing ourselves hit those benchmarks.
Question 10. The first budget meeting a couple weeks back, there was a discussion about a 1% pay raise for employees. Based on the rate of inflation, Judson ISD staff will be asked to essentially take a pay cut if the only 1% increase is approved. How important is it that Judson ISD staff get to a cost of living increase?
It's extremely important, Kevin, and I know that a 1%, it's not it's not going to help. But every little bit does help, and that's the way I look at it. I'm sorry. I really am. I wish that we could do more. And it's not always going to be this way, Kevin. We will be able to do more. But I venture to ask, where are these funds going to come from? Kevin, I believe it was back in 2011 where the legislature cut our budgets about 25%. That money has never been returned to our districts. And so the 75% was placed on the backs of the school districts. We've never been able to recover from that loss. And so last year, we were able to give a much better increase in pay for our teachers. As a matter of fact, to the entire staff, everyone. And I'm really proud that we were able to do that. We want to be able to continue in that path. 1% is not much. we can consider, and we still have more budget meetings to go to. And those conversations aren't done. We're going to consider talking about those things. Right now, at that initial meeting, yes, 1% was thrown out. But we're not done with those conversations yet, Kevin. So there's a possibility that that increase can be made. I will be one to also ask for more to see what we can do. But at this point, I'm not going to argue. What I want to do is listen. I want to listen to the staff and see what it is that we can do. Because here's the thing, Kevin. Funding is the issue. Where is money going to come from? My opponent talks about the challenge that you brought up to me earlier, that our standards are too low. And so the plan that my opponent has offered, which really isn't a plan, but the conversation that my opponent has offered is to bring more creative energy. Not quite sure what that means. I'm interested in hearing more about that. But to bring creative energy to the board, to be able to establish policies that will raise these standards and goals, like tutors and aides. And I don't think there's a single board member or teacher or employee that would deny that that's something that's needed, and resources. But again, it goes back to funding. Where's it going to come from? And I believe I heard someone who I admire very much ask me, will it come from raising taxes? And if so, that's a problem. School taxes are already way too high. So I don't know what my opponent's remedy is. That's not really a plan, but I'd like to know where the money is going to come from. And so that's also the question when it comes to teacher retention. What are we going to do? We can't. Are we going to cut programs? Some of the programs that bring people to our district? Are we going to cut JECA? Are we going to cut athletics, fine arts? What are we going to cut in order to be able to raise those standards and have a larger pay increase?
I mean, we're all suffering with inflation. And to me, paying our staff, paying our teachers is vital. To me, that's a top priority, is getting them fair salaries. So I would say that would be a top priority. Now, how you move that around in the budget, obviously that's the challenge, but that's a top priority, is paying our people so they'll stay. So yeah, that's key.
Yes, I was at that budget workshop in person. Hopefully I wasn't caught on camera because I did that whole like the rock eyebrow raise thing when they said that. And I'm like, And I'm like, hold on a sec. And then my brain had to go back and churn through data. And I went back and looked up some budget stuff and started looking at some numbers. And I'm like, this doesn't sound quite right. Because one, we didn't hire enough teachers this year. So we obviously aren't going to spend all of our salary because we have 28 kids in a classroom. So we should have extra money from this year. We should have extra money from property taxes because it ended up being 10% more property tax revenue this year. So there's an extra $11 million, and it costs like $2 million to get a 1% pay increase. And I'm like, where's the money? I know how much the cost a dozen eggs is now compared to what it was last year. And so if inflation is going up this much, how can what we're giving people be less than that? So we need to figure out, I need to scour the budget. That's what I need to do. And the hard part with running is I don't have access to all the, data and spreadsheets. There's a lot of public stuff out there, but, there's only so much I can know. But I want to scour and try and figure out, where is it? Because as Dr. Saunders said last night at the school board meeting, human capital, our teachers and aides in our classrooms, are our most valuable asset. It is where we spend the most money within our budget. And they're the ones who make the difference every day. So that's where the money has to go. So where is the money? Why are we increasing our income, decreasing our expenses, but yet there's not more money for teacher pay? And, I know some of the topics have been some of the positions we've been hired for. Our district staff has grown a lot. Not our teaching staff, our district staff. Some of our, administrative type positions. Last night they mentioned at the school board meeting that they want to go forward with hiring an internal auditor at a cost of $250,000 a year. That's 2 teachers or, 4, 5, 6 aides. And when I talk to a teacher and they say we're short 4 behavioral aides in our classrooms, I'm like, well, is this something we should probably be hiring out maybe at half the cost? Maybe we can spend $100,000 for an outside auditor, and that gives me another $150,000, and I can go get those 4 aides that they're missing at that elementary school to help be with those kids and help with the behavior issues and help those kids be ready to learn because they have someone sitting with them every day. So my plan is to get more in. I need to figure out where we can reposition money because there are always choices. Budgets are about choices. And if educational outcomes and scores and teaching our kids is the number one priority, then we need to find the things that are not meeting that objective. And I'm not sure if things like internal auditors and lots of athletic directors and coordinators, there's a lot of things that don't necessarily impact student outcomes. And maybe that can help us find something more than a pay increase that is less than the cost of living.
Question 11. Do you have any suggestions or ideas on how we might reach a cost of living increase?
The answer to your question is no. I don't know how we'll reach a cost of. I don't have suggestions on how to reach a cost of living increase. But I would like to say, when I said before that I don't know where the funds would come from, and I don't. I really don't know where those funds are going to come from. I can't see us cutting any programs because those programs, all those various programs, are what our students need in order for them to achieve and graduate. But I just lost my thought.
Oh, you were going to talk about ways to save Judson money.
Oh, yes. One of the things that we have done that I was not in agreement with, and I am one of those trustees that, for the most part, I trust the recommendations that come before me from the staff. I do not believe that we have a gotcha staff that wants to do that to our Judson community and have a witch hunt. I don't believe that we have those type of employees. And if they do, they need to get gone. But for the most part, what I do is I take the recommendations from our staff and their expertise. I did not, however, approve of having an internal auditor. I believed that that was an expense that we did not need. I believe that, and I still believe that. I believe that anything that needs to be looked into and scrutinized more heavily, we can hire an auditing firm to do that. We can let them do what they need to do, give the board their report and recommendations on what they have found, what we need to improve, pay them, and get gone. And I don't believe that having an internal auditor that reports to the board is a solution to whatever challenges our district has. So That's one funding source that we didn't need, because that requires now an office space, utilities, and then that person also has benefits. That's an expense. That's at least one teacher's salary. At least one. I couldn't approve of that, and I still don't.
Very good question. How do we do it? And that's reassessing the budget. I mean, it's how do we do anything? How do we get more resources to teachers? How do we get done what we need to get done? And to me, it's such a hard thing. It seems like with any budget people look at, we're willing to add more, but we're not willing to cut a single thing. And most of us who handle our own personal budgets know we have to balance. It's got to be a balance. So you have to set your priorities, and you have to aim at those priorities first. And to me, our staff and our students' performance is going to be number one. I think that the budget needs to be reassessed and reprioritized to meet those number one goals.
That has to do with deliberate choices in our budgeting process. And it has to be an acknowledgement by everyone in the process that human capital is most important, that taking care of our teachers is important, that educational outcomes for our kids is the most important, and then reallocating money to support that. And if we set a goal of certain objectives and certain scores we want to reach, then we need to take care of our teachers and our aides and all of our staff and make sure that they are continuing to work for us. Because it isn't even just teachers too. We got to get these kids to and from school. We can't not take care of our bus drivers and not give them the same cost of living that other school districts are giving too, because otherwise we can't get kids to and from school. Same with our amazing janitorial staff. I mean, our school, I love walking into our schools, and especially at night for meetings and seeing them working, because they just work tirelessly. And especially because you see what kids do during a day. Oh my gosh, it's a horrible task to, have to clean up all the stuff from the floors and everything else. But let's take care of everyone who's helped making life happen every day for our kids, and make sure that they can take care of their own families at home. And that a little bit of money makes people feel appreciated. And we want everybody to feel appreciated in Judson.
Question 12. Are you in favor of cutting our 100 plus non-certified teacher salaries up to $10,000 as discussed in the last budget meeting?
Absolutely not. We've got a shortage. We have a shortage of teachers. We have gotten people who are in their fields. They're the expert in their industry. Thankfully, they have been able to fill in those spots where we didn't have a teacher. I think that's an excellent way for a student to be able to know about engineering, chemistry, welding, cybersecurity. What better way of getting one-on-one feedback in that field that student is interested in than to have the expert in that field teach you? I was a fine arts person when I was in school. And so for somebody to be able to lead me into the direction that I wanted to go into performance would have been excellent for me. So, no, I totally disagree with decreasing that salary of that expert in that industry. Totally disagree. Because what we are able to offer them is the certification process. We want to keep you here because of your expertise. So here's what we'd like to offer to you. We'd like to offer you the certification process in order to keep you in this field because we need you. That's what we can do. But to be able to decrease their salary for their expertise, no, I'm sorry. Can't go along with that.
Well, that's been further addressed since that meeting. And that's been changed, is my understanding, that there's no desire to cut their salaries because they are basically in a position to become certified. Most of the ones we have are moving towards certification so that we'll have teachers we can retain. So therefore, that's the latest I've heard of it. So we don't need to cut any salaries.
100% no. Here's why. You have to look at who those 102 people are. Those 102 people were like me when I retired from the military. These are people who very often are on their second careers. They have served in some way, shape, or form, have 20 years of life experience, and have decided to switch over to the profession of teaching. And what they bring to the table from life experience is just as valuable as what people bring from a teacher certification program. It's different amount of skills. They may not have as much classroom management skills, but they have life skills. They have their parents and other things. There also are our career and technical education people. The person who teaches welding may not have gone to college to be a welding teacher and gotten a certification, but we need a welder because we have kids who are going on that career path. So we have to look at all those 102 people are here for a very specific reason. And they're all enrolled in certification programs. They've all committed to getting their certification in the first year. And if you talk to some of our district staff who go down and watch their classrooms, some of them are killing it. Those are their words exactly. Like, these people are amazing and should have gone to teaching a long time ago. And to cut their pay, I mean, these are the teachers of last resort. If we don't have them, we don't have anybody. There isn't anybody. We're going to have classrooms with a rotating sub every day. We're going to go stick 35 kids in a classroom because we don't have a teacher for a certain classroom. We need those 102 people. And the great part is we've done this the right way. They're on a 1-year contract. If they're not killing it after a year, then we don't have to renew their contract. So no, we need to come up with some creative recruiting options and get people over to the profession of teaching.
So question 13, this comes from my neighbor, Sarah Regalado. What can be done to reduce teacher-student ratio to help students succeed?
The short answer is have more teachers. That's the short answer. We need more teachers to reduce the class sizes. The long answer is, that's a good question. But I can assure Sarah, is it Sarah? Sarah, I can assure you that it's as much of a priority and it's as much of a concern to the school board members as it is to her. We know there's not ideal situations. Sarah, I'm a former teacher, so I understand that. It's more difficult. You need to have help in your classroom when you have more students. And then there's another problem, behavior. That becomes a big issue when the class size is too much. But the long and the short answer to that is we've got to do something to hire more teachers. We've got to have more teachers in our field. We've got to be able to give them what they need in order to teach. Yes, they need resources. Yes, they do. But we need more teachers.
That's going to be a budget issue. Actually, they just dealt with that in the meeting last night. And they are going with a lower ratio. And I'm sure that's going to be reflected in budget decisions, but I am so grateful that they did that. That's vital. And one of the teachers got up and spoke about it, said, thank you for doing that. And they seemed so relieved. But it sounds like we're already on track we've made a good start anyway. And I'm sure it'll be reflected in budget choices as well.
Thanks for that question, Sarah. I think I've seen you out on a bunch of our Judson Facebook groups out there and putting in a lot of good input from some of our parents. It's back to, again, Judson has to take care of their own. We cannot be a destination district for everybody from other school districts. Once we take care of our own, maybe that's something way down the road we look into, but right now we have to take care of our kids. So, and there's a plan now in place to, limit the out of districts enrollments and make sure that we are capping our campuses to leave room for our families who live in those neighborhoods, because that has to be first priority. So if we slow down that enrollment from the non-neighborhood students, then we can start to reduce those ratios and not be overcrowded. Again, back to creative recruiting. The teacher pipeline will not produce enough teachers at a minimum the next 5 years, potentially 10 years. We have to have enough people in high school who want to go to college to go get a degree in teaching and then come out of the pipeline. And that's not going to meet the demand for teachers. So we got to start looking elsewhere and getting people to come over to the teaching profession. And that's what we're doing with those 102 non-certified teachers is we're out there recruiting people with bachelor's degrees and life experience who maybe hadn't thought about teaching before and now are seeing this as an alternative. And there are altruistic people in the world who really want to come and make a difference in kids' lives. And this is now a path where they can do that, as opposed to they couldn't, we didn't always have those pathways available when we had too many teachers, but now they have a way in. And we're going to assign them mentor teachers and make them feel valued and give them all the support we can to make them successful. Because if we make them successful in their first year and valued and pay them enough, they'll stay and they'll stay in the profession. And so we're going to have to get creative and go out and find ways to find those people so that we can fill all of our vacancies next fall at the district's goal is at 21-to-1 ratio, so that when a few more kids come in, then we can get up to 22, but leaving a little bit of gap so that we don't go over 22 if we don't have to, is let's be on Operation Fill every classroom with a great teacher. And then really retaining those ones that we already have. Like I said, with pay, we've been doing pretty good so far. In the past, we've done some big pay increases in the last couple of years. And I loved a great Facebook conversation we had the other day because, I'm just pulling up all the data from all over all the other districts and I'm like, all right, first year we're at close to the top, 6th year we're close to the top, 16 we're at the top. Hey, Judson's doing pretty good. We have been. And then thanks to all the teachers who told me I forgot to keep looking on the pay scale. And I'm like, hold on. I love my research, love math and numbers. So then I went and pulled the pay scale from 20 to 30 years. And I'm like, oh, now I got you. That's where we're lacking. If you look at the 26 years between us, Church-Cibolo, Northeast, North Side, all of a sudden we're not at the top of the pay scale. And with teachers, how it works with their retirement system, because remember, they don't get Social Security, they got to rely on TRS. It has to do with their highest pay and how much money is going into that TRS system. So those last 10 years they're teaching, they need the maximum amount of money they can. So we're losing teachers in that 20 to 30 year time frame, and we need to retain them.
Question 14 from Facebook. Stephanie asks, if elected, you'll be joining a board that is clearly divided and has many issues internally. How will you work to bridge that gap to make our board a high-functioning one?
Well, let's start with one of the things that's facing us right now is our leadership. We are in the process of searching for the CEO. And I would hope that that's what that person would do. They are the leader of the district. And as far as I'm concerned, what I can do is to voice my opinion about not micromanaging that person. My job is to govern the district. My job is to oversee the leadership, but it is also to decide what type of leader I'm looking for. And I'm not looking for a leader that divides. I am looking for a leader that can unify. And so we're in that process right now. The division that is on this board is disgusting. I thought that we were a team. And I found out that we are not. And it's hard, but I have to stand for what I believe in. And so I'll continue to do that and voice my opinion about how to keep the board unified and not divided. I hope that Stephanie pays attention to the board meetings and what is said. When someone is, when a board member is addressing certain folks in the audience, certain constituents in the community, to more negativity than positivity. I hope that I can bring more positivity. That's what I'd like to do. And that positivity will bring more unity. But I'm not out for getting people to disagree and say what isn't good about our district, and find others to complain. I'm not about that. I'm not looking for complainers. I'm not looking for someone to say, this isn't right, and we got to find people who can make it right. I'm just not. I'm not of that ilk. I can't do that. So hopefully, my voice will bring positivity and unity. But right now, that's what I'm looking for in this superintendent search. Team of 8.
That's a great question. And that is something that's vital, that we get along with each other. I'm generally a bridge builder myself. I'm optimistic. I'm a good listener, and I like people. And outside of campaign efforts, most people like me too. Campaign atmosphere tends to change that a little bit, makes it a slightly different environment. But once on the board, then relationships is what you form. And if you communicate to the person, I respect you, I care about your viewpoint, and I want to hear it fully, then most people appreciate that. And that is something, it might take some time. It might take time because people might look at you with suspicion or unsureness to begin with, because you're a new person coming in and they don't know you yet. But I think they will find everyone I've worked with, I'm not going to say every person, but most people I work with over the many years I've worked in the mortgage business, which can be highly contentious sometimes. In that environment, I make friends and I make good connections with people that are sometimes considered to be like opposite you, like an underwriter who's looking at your loan and has the power to squash it. You develop a connection and you make sure that they understand where you're coming from. I take extra time to make the picture clear. This is what I'm trying to present to you so that you understand fully. I don't leave anything to chance. I flesh out all the information so the underwriter, who has the power of God, right, so that they get a clear picture on behalf of that borrower. I would do the same thing on the board. I would clearly delineate what I'm thinking, where I'm coming from, why, and listen to them. Listen to the other people on the board. That's where you have to start.
Good question, Stephanie. Stephanie and I did a lot of work together on the bond. She was, one of those invested parents who was out there fighting really hard to make sure that we got all those safety and security measures. So she's great. we talk a lot, some of our board members have, and I know I've talked about it too, which is that team of 8 concept. And that's what is recommended how school boards operate, which is 7 school board members and a superintendent, and they have to view themselves as a team of 8, and they have to work together toward objectives. And we're not doing that right now. I think you watch enough board meetings, you're going to see that's not really quite how it's working. But I guess you got to look at why it ends up that way. When I'm going back and again looking at 2021 campaign stuff, I hear, from my opponent campaigning on his 6-point campaign plan for the district, and he's got all these plans and of what he wants to do in the district. Well, that's kind of the wrong starting point, because you don't get a plan. You're one person, you're one vote on a school board. Plans are developed as a team, people talking things out, people sharing ideas, getting viewpoints from everyone, because it's not about Monica's personal opinion or Monica's personal viewpoint. I'm a conduit to all the other stakeholders' viewpoint. So I have to talk to parents and see how they feel about things, community members, government leaders, teachers, and I take all those viewpoints and I go in, and with my team of 8 on a school board, we develop a plan together. So I think if we have board members coming in with these predisposed ideas of their plan and agendas and how they think things are supposed to go, I guess that would shut down communication between board members, because they're not coming in with an open mind, willing to look at all possibilities of what could be the plan to move Judson forward. They're coming in with a preset plan based on what they think is going to move Judson forward. So I go in very much open-minded, and I want to have open discussions, and I want to hear both sides of everything. I want to hear the data, I want to hear the facts, and I want to hear from the stakeholders. And then I want to work with people to come up with a plan together that we can all live with, and it's going to involve compromise because there's limited resources. And once we can start working together as that team, then I think with the new superintendent, whoever that may be, then that team of 8 concept can start pushing us forward much faster than kind of a broken team of 8 can.
Question 15 is your closing statement. What would you like to say to the voters?
Here's what I'd like to say to the voters, that we are at a critical time right now. Unfortunately, I would not have thought that, or thought to have to be able to say that just a year ago, but we're back to square one again, and by that I'm saying we're looking for a superintendent. Fortunately or unfortunately, we're looking for a superintendent, and that's critical at this point. But what I'd like to be able to do is bring back some more positivity. So simply, my platform is that I'd like to be able to continue the work that I've done with the oversight of the passing of this bond and safety and security. It's still equity across the district is important to me. Equity in resources, equity in hiring processes, equity in funding for whatever the needs are that we have that's facing us. But I also have some suggestions that probably most don't think about. I visit a lot of schools when I'm invited. And when I go to schools, as a former teacher, obviously, I go into classrooms and I look at how classrooms are managed and how kids are relating to their teacher and vice versa. But I also look at other things, and I look at things like, I try to look at things not only as a trustee, but just as a regular person. a homeowner, a taxpayer. And when I think about improvements that my husband and I can make to our home, it occurred to me that when we get these phone calls all the time of solar panel people are soliciting their businesses, I thought, I wonder how often these companies, solar panel companies, have gone to school districts to find out if solar panels is a means of sustainability and energy for a school district. So one of my recommendations when I get reelected is to inquire about solar panels on the rooftops of our facilities and comparing what type of savings could we make if we spent more on conservation. I think of, we're definitely, whether you agree or not, we're in a place of climate control. And so that's one of the things that is on my agenda, along with cost savings when it comes to xeriscaping the outside of the school and the appearance of the school outside. Since we do have a shortage in our maintenance department, what about using heat-resistant plants and xeriscaping in the front of the school building instead of having this mowing schedule with less maintenance operators to go to your campus and mow the lawns and keep it up. And after a heavy rain, kids can't go outside because they may get bitten by some critter. I was thinking about sustainability and conservation and energy. What could we do about that? And I don't think that those are things that, for the norm, most trustees have thought about. Most of us think about what's inside the classroom, and of course, very well needs be. But also, what about our facilities? And how can we maintain our facilities?
I'd like to say, hello, voters. I'd like to say, if you want everything to stay the same, if you want it to be status quo, I'm probably not your candidate, because I'm coming in hopefully to change the way things are, to look for where we can improve where we're standing. And there's always room for improvement. But I'm not hearing that from most people I'm talking to, that they want everything to be the same. But I'm just saying, if status quo is more comfortable for you, that's not the candidate that I am. What I want to do is come in and hear you, and I will continue to be available to voters in the entire district. I will make a point to visit every school in the district. I'll make a point to hear from teachers in every school. I will make that a goal for one whole year. I want to visit every school. That's one of my goals. So I want to hear from the voters, the parents, the teachers, the staff. I want to hear what they're experiencing. I plan to create an advisory committee where, from people all over the district, parents, teachers, that I meet with at least quarterly, but can talk on the phone with at any point. And I want to hear from those in the trenches. I want to hear what's happening where you are. What are you seeing from your perspective of what's going on with your child, with your student, with your classroom, what's happening? We might have implemented a program that sounds great, but it might not be functioning the way it was intended to, and that happens all the time. Good intentions sometimes don't work in actuality. I want to know about that as it's happening. I want to hear, how's that program working? Because we might be putting money into something that's not doing what it was supposed to do. And why not know about that earlier on instead of years down the road? And you know what? There are people that would tell us this is how that's working, but we're not asking. So I'm coming in to ask. I'm coming in to listen. I'm coming in to look for the areas we can improve on. And I'm coming in for change, but change in growth, change for a positive direction, not just change to upset the apple cart. Things to improve our overall perspective, our overall position in the district. And I want to continue an ongoing relationship with the voters. And that's, hopefully you want change. That's what I'm hearing. And that's what I'm standing for.
Oh, well, I guess before I get to the voters, I want to thank you guys and local politics, because not enough attention is usually spread on school district elections. They just kind of go under the radar. And Judson's at a point right now where everybody wants it on the radar. So to provide somewhere where people can learn more about the candidates and actually make educated decisions, because there are people out here who do want to know who's running for our school board and who's on our school board. So for you guys in the Tri-County to sponsor something like this, it means a lot to the voters. And I'm glad they will be able to, hear more from, the candidates who chose to come on here. Thanks to the people who put in questions. We have a very active Facebook groups out there for Judson and some really passionate parents. So I'm glad people were excited to submit some questions, and our board members also. And to anybody who tunes into this and really listens to it, probably got to give a big thanks to my kids too, because it's been a long 60 plus days already of campaigning with another 40 something to go. There's been a few too many Uber Eats nights and Ship Shopper dropping off some groceries because I haven't been around anywhere near as much as I've wanted to be. And the kids knew it would be like this. And I thank them for letting me do this, because they know that this is something important. And I try and instill service, a sense of service to your community in them. So super appreciative of them. But to everybody who's listening, no matter what, just come out and vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for. Find out about the candidates. Find out what's important to you. Find out who stands for what's important to you. And then just come out and vote. We had less than 3% of our registered voters voted for the person who's currently on our school board. That means 97% of the people didn't get a say, chose not to have a say. So if we want to be truly represented and have our viewpoints represented on that board, then we got to show up on election days, not just in November when it's presidential. We got to show up in May, because what happens in our local politics and our local elections often have more of an impact than the national elections, because it's what's happening in our day-to-day lives. But I want to be accessible to everybody. There's nothing I like more than talking to people about kids, about schools, about our community. Those who've met with me know sometimes some of these lunches go 2-3 hours because we just start talking, and I love hearing what everybody has to say. And people are welcome to contact me at any time now. I plan to be completely accessible when I'm on the board, and I want people to feel like they have people they can reach out to if they are concerned, or to tell us how amazing we're doing in Judson and tell us your success story. So, you want to know more about me, I'm pretty easy to stalk on Google or on Facebook. All of my stuff is pretty much public because I don't have anything to hide. I'm a big believer in transparency and ethics and doing the right thing always. So go ahead and stalk me out on Facebook, website, votemonicarayan.com. You've probably seen some of my 200 plus signs all over the place, but if you like what you hear, tell a neighbor about it, tell a friend, and make sure that we get just as many people out to vote in this election as possible. But thank you guys for having me today.